Foundation
the
is
fact
not doing
that they
enough.
shoot at people as they're waiting in line for humanitarian aid. Dozens of people get shot and killed literally every single day, as they're waiting for food. No, I'm not going to let you filibuster, bitch. I'm not going to let you filibuster. I'm not going to let you filibuster. You guys are totally okay with IDF soldiers shooting and killing desperate people waiting for humanitarian aid. You're okay with that. I find it so unbelievably evil. Unbelievably evil. It shocks my conscience and my soul that people as evil as this exist in this world. Okay? Watching these images, looking at these videos, seeing all these kids desperate, hungry, parentless, trapped in Gaza. And you're sitting here and you're defending it. I can't stand it. I can't listen to it. The filibustering is unbearable. It's unbearable.
What I tell you what,
I can't take it. How can you watch all those kids die?
Okay, let me bring Gideon.
You can't, on one hand, demand that American taxpayers who are desperate for a better life here in America, they need to hand over billions of dollars to the Israeli government and the IDF, and we need to shut the F up about any of our critique. AIPAC is evil. AIPAC is evil, evil. My fellow Americans, are you okay with that? Are you okay with a lobbying group representing the best interests of a foreign government telling you you need to bust your ass every day, work a job that you likely hate, and have a portion of your earnings taken from you by our federal government and funneled to the Israeli government so they can commit atrocities in the Gaza Strip? Are you okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that, and nothing gets under my skin more, okay, than hearing these pieces of crap say things that make it clear that they feel entitled to our money.
Feel your frustration. I can feel how sad you are. I can feel how difficult it is for you to see Israel teaching the Iranian regime a lesson, and Israel winning on the battlefield. I can understand that it's frustrating for you. I can understand that you're having a tough time dealing with reality.
You have to actually address the substance of my argument. Why are IDF soldiers shooting and killing children at humanitarian aid hubs? You genocidal prick.
And frankly, really, your talking points are tired.
The whole world
I'm not here to answer your questions, Mrs. Interrupter. I'm not here to answer your questions. Last time I checked, this wasn't your channel. And you've done nothing but interrupt and talk nonsense.
Taking from the
You've
American
only been talking
people,
nonsense so far, and I've been sitting here and listening quite politely to your nonsense, and you keep on screaming over me as if you're right.
Individually talking. Don't talk over each other. There's no point.
I can't stand these people and their disgusting lies.
But excuse me, I was talking, and then you started interrupting, and you're screaming. You're impolite.
I can speak over you.
You're not even facts-based.
In a region of sovereign states,
as I'm doing, and you guys
Israel
can't stand it.
wants
I get
to
it.
live
I get
in
it.
peace.
It's really difficult.
You don't need
because
to
you guys
keep
just let
making
Anna finish, Elon, then we'll come to you. Well, let me finish. Yeah, I know it hurts your feelings. I know it's difficult for me to explain exactly what the Israeli government's plans are, what they have dragged us into in the past. I just want to note one other thing. You know, not too long ago, I think it was last month, as international diplomats from Europe actually were in the occupied area of Jenin specifically, the IDF fired bullets at them. And by the way, later took responsibility of the fact that they fired bullets at them. That seems like terroristic activity. Why was that okay? And why have we not heard about the consequences that those IDF soldiers faced, if any at all, after they decided to fire rounds at international diplomats as they were visiting Jenin?
In that particular incident, there was a misunderstanding because the diplomats had agreed and approved the route with the army, and then diverted
let's not forget about the 232 journalists in Gaza
That's not
that
true.
have been slaughtered
Hamas has been
by the
shooting them. The
IDF.
Gaza Humanitarian Foundation even confirmed it was
You people
Hamas.
disgust me.
They confirmed
There's
it was
no
Hamas.
humanity
And the only
people
thing
like you,
disgusting
Emily.
here is
No
the person who is
humanity.
intentionally lying and blaming the
Shut up.
IDF
I can't
when
even
the
handle your
IDF is the
voice.
one who is assuring that there's humanitarian aid.
I'm an Armenian.
There are
I know
11
genocide when I
million
see
meals
it.
that have been
You
distributed
are a
already.
defender of
11 million
genocide. You
by
are a
the
genocider and
Gaza
a defender of
Humanitarian
genocide.
Foundation.
Disgusting.
I know you don't like facts, Anna, but this is the reality. The only person who is
something. There are two countries in this whole scenario that do have nuclear weapons. One, of course, is the United States of America. The other, they don't acknowledge it, is Israel. So they act like, oh, we're just little lambs, and it's such a big threat. Okay. The whole thing about nuclear weapons, the reason why the United States can't allow Ukraine to do whatever it wants against Russia is because they're a nuclear power. It is a deterrent.
Ukraine had nukes, remember.
Israel doesn't want Iran to have a deterrent. Now, in a perfect world, neither of those countries would have nuclear weapons, but one of them does, and the one that does loves to cry about how it's always under threat while it's bombing Iranian embassies in places like Syria, while it's literally allowing its IDF soldiers to shoot at international diplomats as they're visiting Jenin. Like, are we ever going to at least address the belligerence of the current Israeli government?
Also shooting at people in Gaza when they're trying to get aid.
No tax on tips expires. No tax on overtime expires. It's all means tested. But the tax breaks for the rich, those are permanent.
You mean the people that work like hell to become wealthy?
The group that gets rewarded the most in this country are the rich. And you're talking about, they're not punished. You guys are doing real well. You talk about it on the show on a regular basis, okay?
I want to beat them up.
How many cookies do you want from this
administration? Don't you ever try and get rich in America again.
Whatever. Oh my God. Imagine thinking the rich in America are the victims.
Iran is not
a threat to America. Iran is not a threat to America. There's no evidence that Iran is a threat to America.
Developing nuclear weapons?
They are part of...
Are they developing nuclear weapons or not?
They are not developing nuclear weapons. There is no evidence of that.
So why are they having nuclear peace talks?
Why do they have detonators in enriched
Because they think it's fun? What are you talking about?
Because, first of all, I would not be surprised if they geared up enriching uranium as a result of the fact that Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018.
The Iran nuclear deal.
Hold on.
So they're developing nuclear weapons.
Hold on.
It's okay. Iran is part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Do you know what that is?
Go ahead, explain.
Non-Proliferation Treaty allows the international community to do checks on Iran to ensure that they are not developing nuclear weapons. The country that does have nuclear weapons is Israel. They are not part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They don't even acknowledge the fact that they have nuclear weapons. The idea that Israel, that has the backing of the top military superpower in this world, and that's the United States, the country that has nuclear weapons, is crying about how Iran is such a threat to Israel. It's ridiculous.
But didn't they just
is that the United States has been expending its resources and has been essentially sending its soldiers to die in wars on behalf of Israel, a country that goaded us into invading Iraq on a false pretense of weapons of mass destruction. 4,000 of our soldiers died in Iraq. You didn't send a single IDF soldier. Not one IDF soldier was sent to Iraq. Our soldiers died on your behalf, Kunrikis, on your country's behalf.
Not at all.
And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. You guys are committing a genocide right now, yet you're a nuclear power that's not in the non-proliferation agreement. Why? Why is that? How come you guys get to play by completely different rules? You're genocidal. You're disgusting. The world sees you guys for what you are. You are the people of Israel. Hate the government of Israel. You're a genocidal government. You guys make me sick. You make me sick.
So deep.
You make me sick.
Let him
The
answer.
entire international community looks at your government
Let him
and
answer.
gets sick even thinking about it.
And that's why I agree with Secretary Rubio on removing that Mahmoud.
If we're going to go to Mahmoud Khalil, this is a group that on their Substack has a tribute to Yahya Sinwar, who orchestrated October 7th. Get out. I'm finished. I can't with
Hold
him.
on.
Not with you, of course. But
I deeply, deeply disagree with idolizing anyone who has done anything associated with October 7th. October 7th was a disgusting atrocity.
But he does.
But hold on. You either support free speech or you don't.
He's not an American.
Hold on. It doesn't matter. If you're in the country legally, as he was, Lindy, either you understand our laws or you don't, and you don't understand our laws, okay? So our laws in our country indicate,
the Secretary
even
of State
if you're here
to agree with me.
I don't care what the Secretary of State cares about or believes, okay? I'm telling you what the law
he's
is.
the guy in charge.
Here's the law, Lindy.
Hold on.
This is the law.
You don't have to be cruel about it.
Do you believe in free speech or not?
No, Cruz is heated.
Do you believe in free speech or not?
Losing her.
I am losing it. Because here's the thing. All the people who made a big deal, and I made a big deal about this as well, about the left trying to shut people up who they disagreed with, are now providing cover for the same treatment that's being carried out by the other side. So listen, I don't agree with supporting Sinwar or Hamas. That kind of rhetoric disgusts me.
He's that guy.
However, he's in the country legally, okay? He's going to Colombia. Since he's in the country legally, he's going to Colombia. He is protected by our Constitution. That means the same First Amendment rights that we enjoy, he enjoys.
So what you're saying is if there was an American citizen who was in there doing the exact same thing, the same punishment that he received would not be applied equally to the American citizen. And
hold on, he got the visa on the idea that he would come here to study, not militate in favor of Hamas. So that's a standard. So that's a standard you want to set, Lindy? So your standard is if you come to the United States, who's the arbiter of what kind of speech is acceptable?
Exactly. And I was going to
love for them to release the files. I am not at all in Trump's base. However, I care deeply about it because I'm not going to buy this argument that like these young girls were raped by
By what? Did they rape themselves? No, they got raped by people who are in powerful positions. And I want to know how many of those individuals are currently serving in our government in some role or the
American
other.
awake for 18 hours a day. How many minutes do you think they spend worrying about this stuff? Maybe they were raped, maybe they weren't. This is not what American families give a damn about.
Just to be clear,
Okay, other people do, including people like me who want justice. And I want to know how many of those people are in our government.
I don't know about
poop about this or what's going on.
There's more to life than the American economy. There's justice and the fact that we might have pedophiles serving in our government right now.
Oh my
goodness,
that's the
problem.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So if someone was shooting at you, if someone was, you don't have kids, right?
If an armed man grabbed a family member of yours, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Oh, do you have? Okay, your mother. You talked about your mother. If an armed gunman grabbed your mother, had a gun to her head, okay, and he is confronted by the authorities, by law enforcement, and the law enforcement, they just decide, you know what, we're not going to negotiate, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to shoot the hell out of both of them. And then they come to you and say, well, your mother, sorry, was a human shield. Would you accept that argument?
That's not the question, though.
Would you accept that argument?
You're making up a random story that what my mother is held captive.
Hamas using Palestinians as human shields is not a justification to indiscriminately bomb the hell out of that region, knowing full well that the majority of people who are going to end up dying are not Hamas militants who are underground in the tunnels, okay? Okay, it's the innocent civilians who are going to lose their lives. And the flippant behavior that I see from the West in regard to all of those innocent people losing their lives disgusts me. Okay, seeing people having to leave, vacate their homes, everything that they've known, being forced to leave the land that they have. That is exactly what happened to Armenians. That is exactly what happened during the genocide. And the fact that the United States is just willy-nilly providing cover for that behavior absolutely disgusts me.
I feel like somebody watching is going to have a tear their hair out moment being like, you're blaming this on the U.S.?
Yeah, I am, partly.
I think you're wrong.
Wait, no, hold on. Let's separate it.
Listen,
we cannot conflate ISIS with the grooming gangs. Can we agree?
I'm not doing that. I'm talking about migrant crises. That's
the part that I want to be clear about.
My favorite thing in the world is when the West is bitching about like, oh my God, these Muslim immigrants. There's an influx of Muslim immigrants. Yeah, we're bombing their countries. They have look at what's happening to Palestinians in Gaza right now. They have no homes, no schools, no hospitals. I'm not conflating it.
Pakistan
Wait,
and this
but Jillian,
you brought up they came anyway.
You brought up immigration.
Yes, so that
was my response to immigration. If you don't want these migrant crises,
I absolutely want immigrants, just not ones that believe in raping 11-year-olds.
Yes, hold on. Instead of talking about,
but they're very different things, which is why you have
people.
laws. We have laws.
Let me give you a specific example, and then you tell me what you think should happen. Okay. So every home, almost every building in Gaza, demolished, leveled. Palestinians have nothing left. Israel just demolished the whole place. Okay. Where are they supposed to go?
But we have the United Nations Refugee Agency that is supposed to be handling these crises.
By what? By doing what?
We have 7 government agencies that vet these people, and they can be dispersed to different countries. That's
a migrant crisis, right? That's almost 2 million people who need to. I think it's unhealthy to spend the amount of time you spend in judging decisions that parents make about their own children. I think it's none of your business. I don't think it's anyone's business. And schools are not doing anything close to what the right wing is describing. I mean, it is amazing because you talk about Alan Dershowitz, who had written a column in the New York Times about how it should be okay to have sex with underage girls, okay? You don't call him a groomer, but you'll call our educators who have done nothing wrong, just want to create an environment that's welcoming to all students. You'll call them groomers. You'll defame them as some sort of sexual predators, and it's unacceptable. Just being clear about that.
I never called them groomers. You have the wrong guy. But a teacher that has the kids in kindergarten attend a drag queen story hour to see a guy in a dress dancing erotically in front of them, those teachers are what we would have called 10 years ago sick. They are depriving children of sexual innocence, and if that's not a sin on the left needs to do a lot of introspection.
I would love for you to apply standards like that to the former president of the United States, who you supported, who you endorsed. You have completely minimized some of the scandals that he was involved in, including paying hush money to adult entertainers he had cheated on his pregnant wife with. I'm bringing that up because you have this weird standard when it comes to our educators, but no standards when it comes to a person who leads the country, who children look to as a role model.
Don't get to enjoy some God-given, God-tier double standard where they get away with carrying out barbaric acts. And that's what they've been doing in Gaza and the West Bank. And no, it's not something that just started after October 7th. It's something that's existed for a long, long time. And people are sick of it. People are calling it out. And the people calling it out aren't anti-Semites. They're not anti-Jewish. They're not, anti-Israel's right to exist or Israel's right to defend itself against terrorist atrocities. They're seeing the injustice and they're speaking out against it because it disgusts them as much as it disgusts me.
It has not solved the problem. It has made the lives of these individuals struggling on the streets far worse, and it has also made the lives of hardworking, tax-paying Americans in states like California a lot worse.
Yeah.
When I look at my life right now, and I ask myself, which political party has made my life worse? It's not the Republican Party. Locally speaking, the Democrats have complete control, and they have nearly destroyed my family's livelihood. Okay, we are living in trash and squalor everywhere. And unless the Democratic Party actually acknowledge these issues and solve these issues, rather than stealing our taxpayer money and funneling it to their nonprofit friends, they keep doing this, they're going to keep doing
The reason illegal immigrants say they're coming for family reunification is because that's what got you a free bus pass and a box lunch in the Obama era, whatever they need to say to be moved into the interior of the country. But this idea that, you can't break up my family. Well, okay, all of you go back then.
I think it's hilarious that you're sitting here saying that you care about taking care of our poor people and spending our taxpayer money on government programs that help our poor people. You've been on the record on multiple occasions talking about how much you hate the welfare state. And so you don't care about taking care of anyone. You care about lower taxes for yourself, and that's pretty much it.
These comments might be strong, but it's how I genuinely feel. I don't care that you're a Christian. I don't care what the Bible says. Like, I feel like it's a clown show, like sitting here trying to decipher what your little mythical book has to say about these very real political issues, right? I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
Okay, well, I've been voting Democrat my entire adult life. Am I happy with where the party is now? Do they represent me? Do I even know what they represent?
Right.
At this
point? That's the big
point?
question, yeah.
And it's tough, James, because right now I don't have a party that I feel represents me. You know, I'm very left economically speaking. Not so much, though. Like, I'm not really in line with the mainstream Democratic Party these days when it comes to some social issues. They're just kind of unreasonable at this point, like on a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And no, I don't believe in police and prison abolition. I think that's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's never been accomplished in any other country. We're like struggling to even get to the Scandinavian model when it comes to criminal justice. What are we talking about here in police abolition? Like, those people who had been preaching about those dumb policy ideas have squandered an opportunity to actually do successful, effective criminal justice reform. So I'm tired of the maximalists on the left. I think that they've destroyed the party when it comes to social issues. And then on economic issues, the Democratic Party has destroyed itself by essentially taking corporate money and siding with the corporate interests that fund their campaigns. So what's left for me there?
I mean, when we have these debates about, socialism versus capitalism, I think that those debates are a little ridiculous because every country is not every country, but most countries are mixed economies.
Right, the United States is
right?
Mixed economy.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, the issue with the United States is there used to be a time when public universities were free, right? You didn't have to dig yourself into a massive hole to get an education. There was a time in this country where there was universal childcare. That was cut down to the point where it's like no longer in existence unless you're desperate and have like no money and need to take advantage of some programs that are available in some states. But my point is, like, we have an issue here where on one hand, we're experiencing a labor shortage. We want people to go back to work. On the other hand, people literally can't afford the childcare necessary in order to put their kids in a daycare, put their kids in childcare, and be able to go to work without their entire paycheck.
The Biden bill removes many work requirements for many of the payments that are being made to people, and it's incentivizing people not to go back to work, which is why we have 10 million open jobs in the United States and people not coming back to work.
That is not what that bill does. In fact, that's not what that bill. Are you talking about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill?
I'm talking about the $3.5 trillion bill.
The $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill offers universal pre-K.
which opens up the opportunity for mothers to go to work if they want to go to work. The $3.5 trillion bill, by the way, has all sorts of subsidies for corporations, which I don't really understand why the business community isn't salivating over that, because rather than just going full force with public programs, which I think would be the right way to go, it's offering all sorts of subsidies in these, public-private partnerships. Now, the physical infrastructure bill has a lot more corporate giveaways, which is why the, business community absolutely loves it, offers the chance to privatize public infrastructure, which is why the business community absolutely loves it. But at the end of the day, if we don't create a society where Americans can actually have families and go to work, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
So to go back to your
will not replace us. They ran over a counter-protester, Heather Heyer, effectively killing her. And so when you have Trump supporters lining up to defend Trump's rhetoric in cases like that, well, then you have to understand why people would draw these types of conclusions about Trump supporters.
It's bothersome to me, though, that Democrats... It's bothersome to me that Democrats do not call out Antifa, that they do not call out the numerous cases of conservatives being attacked. And Anna, you and I have kind of developed an unlikely camaraderie, friendship, whatever you want to call it, over the last couple of months. But when we're talking about rhetoric, let's be fair. You coined me white power Barbie a couple of years ago. So had never met me. So that's what a lot of conservatives go through, is that you never met us, you never talked to us, you look at our viewpoints, and all of a sudden you can say, I don't agree with her politics, you can say, I don't agree with what she says, I don't like the facts that she uses, I don't like her support for this president. But when you blanketly just call somebody a white power Barbie or a white nationalist because you disagree with their politics, that's going too far. That's rhetoric that's also dangerous.
So I think that's a fair point, but I also think that it's important to understand what motivates that type of rhetoric, right? So look, when you are on television and you're saying things about how it's important for us to have as much access to guns as possible so we can defend ourselves against migrants at the border, that's effectively messaging to people, we should shoot migrants as they're coming to the border to seek asylum. So no one lives for free, okay? We pay for that. Yeah. We pay for that in every way.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not... That's the problem that I've been having, because we pay insanely high taxes in this state. Our schools are garbage, okay? Our communities are falling apart. We spend literally billions of dollars every year in this state on the homelessness issue, and it's only gotten worse. So these policies are failing. And so the idea that they're living for free, no, we're subsidizing what's going on.
Where's the money going?
I don't know. Oh, well, actually, I do know. Let's talk about where the money's going. It's my favorite topic, my absolute favorite topic. Money's going to these garbage, and I mean it in every sense of that word and meaning, okay? Garbage nonprofits. A lot of these nonprofits are run by friends and family of elected lawmakers in this state, and they just pad their pockets with millions in government grants and do nothing.
What that is? And I just am amazed that nobody says anything in the United States.
Yeah, Armenians don't have a powerful lobby that can bribe our politicians to care about them. So what's really depressing, though, is, we provide a lot of the weapons that Israel has. And Israel sold weapons to Azerbaijan to carry out the ethnic cleansing of ethnic Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh.
What?
Yep.
Is that confirmed?
Yes, it's confirmed. It's absolutely confirmed.
Israel sold weapons to Azerbaijan to kill the Christians.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
You're sure?
Yeah, anyone can look it up. And look, if I'm ever wrong, I will admit it, but this is something I've researched deeply. Where did Azerbaijan get its weapons from? There have been rumors that they also were sold weapons from Russia, but there was less confirmation on that. But in regard to Israel, it's very clear and it's documented. Yeah.
I sense a theme. And I have a right to sense that theme because I'm a Christian and I'm not going to cede that right. Sorry.
One of the easiest ways to save American taxpayers a lot of money is to allow our Medicare system to negotiate drug prices.
Amen to that.
It is absurd that they're allowed to price gouge American taxpayers. Why is that?
There was no personal event or anything that happened in your life to where you went.
I mean, I was sexually assaulted by a homeless guy. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I was sexually assaulted by a homeless guy in Los Angeles in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog.
Oh my gosh.
And it was awful. I mean, I've talked about it multiple times. And look, I don't want to put myself in this position of being like this victim who's looking for empathy, but it is the moment where something very scary happened to me. And
why did that?
It wasn't just that had happened to me. It was the reaction I received from a faction of the left, okay? The social justice left, if you want to call it that, who think that, in some cases, the criminals are actually the victims and the victims are the criminals. Like, it's insane. And I don't know how big this faction is, but they're loud enough to push me away completely. And so it wasn't that had happened to me. It was the reaction of the left and how they were far more concerned with me talking about it because they felt that was stigmatizing the homeless community. I have never gone out of my way to say negative things about homeless people. I mean, people who are living out on the streets are, in a lot of cases, victims who need help, right?
Yes.
But I was victimized by a guy that was strung out,
on something. Could have been meth. He was jerking around as he was walking toward me with his buddy. And
gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But it took a while for me to get over that because I still have to walk my dog. And so multiple times a day, I literally have to think about that incident. And so I thought maybe it would help to talk about it. And then when I did talk about it, I totally regretted it because I was shocked at the way people reacted to me. But what that moment taught me was some of the characteristics of the quote unquote left that I thought were good, right? Like the kindness, the open-mindedness, the, willingness to go out of your way to look out for people who need help, like that kind of stuff. There's a portion of the left that has shed those characteristics. They've taken on a more nihilistic approach to things, and they don't even believe in reforms. They just believe that everything about every political system, every program we have, every institution we have is just worthless and we need to burn it all down. Okay. So that nihilistic nature, I think, leads to a lot of really bad ideas and terrible behavior online. And that's pushing people out, pushing people away.
This is a quote. So American companies can dominate AI instead of Chinese companies such as Huawei. Okay, pause. One of the arguments that we hear about China is that they constantly steal American IP, intellectual property. And we're supposed to be competing with China. So how does it make sense to do what Trump just did, which is lift the ban that he himself had implemented? Here's a headline from Politico. Trump keeps flip-flopping his policy positions after meeting with rich people. And obviously the CEO of NVIDIA is a very rich person. So basically, he has a meeting and the CEO convinces Trump to do the 180. He does the 180. And I want to know what the quid pro quo was. That there was some promise to Trump. And this is the kind of shady crap that happens under every administration, and we're all supposed to suck it up and just think that it's totally normal, but it's not normal. I want to understand how Trump implemented a ban because he saw value in that ban, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I had a meeting, and we're not going to tell you what happened during that meeting. We're not going to talk about what kind of favors were traded during that meeting. But now I've done a 180, and these chips can be sent over to China.
After the last few weeks, can you see the incentives of how people slide from the left to the right? This sort of denial by the Purity Party. The right is welcoming with open arms. Disaffected Democrats, please come here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do, actually. So if you're grounded in your values, and I do think I am, you're not going to be seduced by people who are just nice to you, right? Like, I actually really respect the fact that the right is welcoming, that they are willing to, forgive past transgressions and say, hey, we will take you in with open arms. Not everyone on the right, but generally speaking, that is what I notice. Whereas with the left, there seems to be this weird obsession with exclusivity, purity, and purging people who are, heterodox or whatever. And so I've noticed quite a bit of that on the left. But I really do value who I am as a person, and I just don't think that I'm going to change my political views entirely based on who's mean to me or who's nice to me.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, in your analysis. And let me just say, that I like you when I'm willing to sit through a podcast episode featuring Gavin Newsom just to prepare for this. Okay, because I can't stand him. I can't stand his raspy voice. And it's not for any superficial reason other than the fact that I live in California. I've had the displeasure of experiencing what his leadership actually looks like. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a terrible person. Look into the Campfire. Look into PG&E, one of his major donors, and how he shafted Californians who lost everything as a result of PG&E refusing to upgrade their 100-year-old equipment, including a $10 hook that was suspending electrical lines. Yeah, that hook finally just gave out. Electrical lines fall onto dry brush, and that caused one of the most devastating fires in California's history. There are people who lost their homes who are currently still living in these RVs or trailers parked on their land, hoping to rebuild, but it's insanely expensive to do that, and they're still not getting the settlement money that they're entitled to. He's just a really bad person. On the Sean Ryan show, one of the other things that Newsom said that I really want to just mention, he was doing this faux taking responsibility and ownership thing. And I can see right through it because he lies, even in that context. So for instance, he was like, I really did something terrible. I got caught having dinner for my friend's birthday at the French Laundry when I told people, don't get together with your family for the holidays and whatever because of COVID. No, Newsom. You didn't get together for your friend's birthday. That was a meeting with your donors at the French Laundry. He's a liar. He's a snake oil salesman.
Whole segment of society that genuinely needs to be re-educated on what America is and what America is not. And America is not Zoran Mandani. You're telling me that a democratic socialist communist jihadist is going to be mayor?
Yeah, Adam Sosnick wanting to send Americans to re-education camps simply because they have a different political or economic perspective makes it pretty clear that maybe he's the one who needs a refresher course on what America really is. And no, Zoran Mamdani is not a jihadist. He's just smeared as one by those who don't like the fact that he's ballsy enough to criticize Israel, which is basically a third rail among most American politicians. I think you can love your country and still feel shame about what being American represents at this current moment. Look, for me, funding the bombs that Israel is using in its genocide is deeply, deeply shameful. It is hard for me to feel pride about my American identity knowing that my government is doing that with my tax dollars.
No, I understand it 100%.
That doesn't mean I don't love the country. I love this country deeply. I just wish we weren't engaged in this awful genocide and dehumanizing behavior.
Things that Candace Owens said today, and look, it takes balls to say this. I don't think I have the balls to say it, but she literally said, no, I don't want regime change I think we should have a talk about regime change in Israel.
Yeah.
And then she talked about how she believes that Israel has carried out more terroristic acts than Iran has. But my point is, she is willing to look at the broader picture, right? Not just what's happening at this moment, but what has happened historically with the formation of Israel, the wars that have been fought on behalf of Israel, and she's calling it like she's seeing it. And so if there is a contingent of Trump voters, and she did vote for Trump, and now she's like speaking out against him because of what happened in Iran with the bombing of the nuclear sites and all of that. If there's a contingent on the right that consists of this anti-war, ideology on the topic of preventing wars, I will work with them. I will work with them, period. I don't care. I don't care if they're right wingers. If they are legitimate in being anti-war, not wanting to engage in regime change on that specific issue, yes, I will work with them. You wanna know why? Because preventing war, to me, is more important than being pure to the left. I don't care about the left, I don't care about the right, I care about results. And I'm sorry, this false dichotomy, this BS like tribalism has only hurt the country. On areas where we can work together, we should work together. And I do think that there's a contingent on the right, voters, and yes, a few media folks who are sick of the regime change wars, they're sick of the forever wars, and they're not full of crap, okay? Because they literally say things publicly that could ruin them, but they say it anyway.
Yeah, so
I hate the regime in Iran.
Right.
I hate the regime.
So why wouldn't you want it changing?
I hate the mullahs. There are Armenians living in Iran right now who hate the mullahs. Okay, but regime change should not be spurred by the United States and Israel, which wants to install a puppet government on their behalf. And by the way, the Iranians know that. They know that. Polling indicates the vast majority of them want regime change. They don't want it to be done by Israel.
And videos of innocent people getting killed as they're desperately trying to get humanitarian aid from these humanitarian aid hubs disgust me. It's obvious, intentional slaughter of innocent people. We would not be okay with it if our own military was doing it. We wouldn't be okay with it under any other context. And I just ask the American people, why are we okay with it in the context of innocent people in Gaza? Why are we okay with it? And why are you okay with funding it? But if you want to have a conversation about atrocities like using rape as an act of war, can we discuss the prison guards at the Israeli prisons who have been caught raping Palestinian detainees who haven't been charged with any crimes? When that story became public, can we discuss the fact that when there were supposed to be consequences for said rapist Israeli prison guards, the insane, unhinged extremist settlers started rioting in order to offer protection for the said rapists? So listen, your argument about Hamas loses any and all power, any and all logic and credibility when you argue that it is okay for Israeli prison guards to carry out rapes of detained Palestinians who haven't been charged with any crimes or any detainee. I don't. And by the way, it's not my place to determine who governs or who rules Iran. It's up to the Iranian people to make that decision.
You don't think it's up to you?
Hell no, I live in America, I'm an American. Who am I to tell any country who their leader should be? Who is our government? Like, we should not be meddling in those matters in any sovereign country. It's up to the people of that country to either rise up and demand something different or to reform the system, whatever they want to do. I'm not interested in regime change. It's not my place at all.
I am the choir and you are preaching.
But I do think that protecting a nation of Israel in a time of crisis is not the same as assisting Ukraine.
Let me ask you something even more specific in regard to our aid to Israel. The United States has not had a budget surplus since 2001. That was literally the last time we had a budget surplus. Israel had a budget surplus in 2022. Okay, the pandemic didn't matter. They still
that's a very good argument.
Right. So
I can't disagree.
That American taxpayers should fund the bombs that Israel is dropping on Gaza is ridiculous to me.
Everyone to please stop talking about the Epstein files. Tucker did the opposite and then some. Reinforces the idea that Epstein worked for Israeli intelligence. Let's take a look at that.
Where people feel like they can't just say, like, what the hell is this? You have the former Israeli prime minister living in your house. You have had all this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of a foreign government? By the way, every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks that. I've never met anyone who doesn't think that. I don't know any of them that hate Israel, but no one feels they can say that. Why? And I think the longer that we play along with it, the more subterranean and creepy and hateful the conversation actually becomes. So I think it's better just to say it right out loud. Did this happen?
That's so
And of course that question has been asked to the government of Israel, and their answer is, we're not going to tell you. And I think our answer should be, no. As long as we're sending you money, if you were committing crimes on our soil, we have an absolute right to know, did you do this or not? And yet everybody has been so brainwashed into thinking that's somehow an expression of hate or bigotry, when it's not. It's a baseline question that every U.S. citizen has a right to an answer on.
100%. I totally agree with him. The point that he makes there is a really important one, because I don't want individuals in this country to start growing this hatred in their heart for any group of people based on what systems of power got involved in. I would be... First of all, there's no way that like Israeli citizens, like they voted on having Mossad run blackmail. No, there's no way. Yeah. So like put the bigotry idea aside. This isn't a bigoted argument to make. However, if there was a blackmail operation and you have foreign governments pulling levers of power and influencing American foreign policy, obviously that's a big problem. That makes me question whether or not this is really a democracy, whether we're really free as a nation. You know, I had convinced myself, oh, people who voted for Trump are bad people. I don't think they're bad people. I think we live in a system where you have two parties that, quite frankly, suck. And after seeing what happened in the primary cycle of 2016, a lot of people who would have voted for the Democratic candidate were like, we don't know what to do. We're so disgusted with the Democratic Party. And they decided to cast their ballots for Trump. Yeah. A lot of people who voted for Obama twice in states like Florida ended up voting for Trump. Does that mean that they're bad people? I think people are trying to make the best out of a terrible political situation that we're in. And we should, again, find ways to connect and bond with people in our country. Otherwise, if we keep tearing each other apart, if we continue devaluing people's lives based on their political ideology, we don't really have a country. We're just headed for the inevitable disaster of this country falling. And basically, Bill Maher did this excellent monologue recently on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher, where he kind of called out the partisan hypocrisy, where let's say you're on the left has held views in favor of something for a long time. In comes Donald Trump. He purports to want to support the same policy, and all of a sudden the Democrats are against it. I thought this was a fantastic segment, and the point that I want to make before we toss to the video is know who you are, what your values are, and what your principles are, and stick to them. Don't get swayed by partisan tribal BS, because there might be some areas in which, you know, there's a coalition on the left and maybe a group of people on the right that can work together to get policy they both want passed, and that's never going to happen if like your default reaction is to just automatically take the opposite position from your political rivals. So with that in mind, let's take a look at a part of Bill Maher's segment.
And finally, New World Americans must get over the fantasy they have that they are a people of core convictions and deeply held beliefs. They're not. They only care which side is saying something. Let me give you 10 million examples. This car used to be fire. Now it's on fire. Back when Elon Musk was presumed liberal, liberals loved electric cars and conservatives hated them. Then Elon went MAGA, and while the car market grew by 10% last month, sales of electric vehicles were down 5%, and not just Teslas, all EVs. Conversely, MAGA Nation used to hate EVs. 2 years ago, 71% of Republicans said they would not consider buying an electric car. Trump said they were for, quote, radical left fascists, Marxists, and communists. Now he's selling them on the White House lawn. Everything's computer. That's right, Tarzan. Everything's computer.
So good and so true.
Oh my God, spot on.
It did squash pro-Palestinian protests overall, and the vast majority of students involved in that were American citizens. They squashed it, completely squashed it.
When you start taking over buildings and you globalize
well, I don't agree. Look, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with making Jewish students uncomfortable or blocking them from being able to go to the library or to class. Those students who did that should be held accountable for it. But the majority of students weren't doing that. And so, look, my big concern here, okay, is that there is a double standard, and because of the fact that these protests offended the sensitivities of Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government, in fact, he gave a speech about that and essentially condemned American citizens who were engaged in those protests. That's the reason why there's like this harsh response to these students. And I don't agree to focus on China. I think there needs to be a broader ban on foreign entities or foreign business interests buying up properties here. The other thing I'll say is I was really disturbed to find, because in his first term, he was pushing back against this, that Donald Trump approved the merger between Nippon Steel, which is a Japanese company That Japanese company bought US steel.
But it's an ally, you know, so that's the way.
I don't care. I don't care if it's an ally.
I'm just saying that's how he's justifying.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. We need to protect property and businesses in the United States. Full stop.
I actually agree with
in the United States. You want to know why?
Yeah, tell me why.
When you see the slaughter of all those innocent kids in Gaza, and our government provides cover for it, and in fact funds it, that leads to a lot of rage among hardworking Americans who see their quality of life go down the drain as we're funding a genocide.
The Democratic Party gives fodder to Republicans who are rightfully saying that these socialist Marxist policies aren't going to work. And honestly, this is an electoral advantage for Republicans, I think, because a backlash against him will galvanize voters and encourage them to go to the polls, not just in New York, but across the country, because people don't want this. We rejected that in 2024.
Okay,
so
Annika.
I'm just curious, is there a day you wake up where you don't see terrorism everywhere? Because you literally just implied that this guy's a terrorist. And I found that bigoted, Islamophobic, and absolutely disgusting. If you don't like his policies, I can understand that. And we can have a discussion about those policies. But it seems like you just have a problem with the fact that he's Muslim. You have a problem with the fact that he looks a little different from other previous leaders. Don't interrupt me. I'm still speaking. I didn't interrupt you. Listen, the problem with that mayoral race is that the Democratic candidates who ran against him in the primary offered nothing. They offered nothing but the status quo. Andrew Cuomo was the former disgraced governor of that state who somehow thought that he had, I don't know, the entitlement to have his past erased and that people would totally accept him again. I'm really happy to find that the people of New York City rejected him because he's a complete and utter disaster. Now, as it pertains to Mamdani, we should actually talk about what he focused on as he was campaigning, because he actually did run a fantastic campaign, even if you don't agree with it.
Never called him terrorist.
It was gross. It's gross.
How are you condoning his usage of globalized intifada? Is that
I think it's stupid. He probably shouldn't say stupid stuff like that because it's going to be misinterpreted. I know what he meant by it. It doesn't matter though. People like you are going to be shivering about it. So he shouldn't use words like that.
The argument, Anna, that you were using was used in the 1930s and 40s that Jews should not be safely evacuated to the United States.
Right. I know. One trick pony.
They need to stay in Germany. They need to stay in Poland. Otherwise, it's an ethnic cleansing. What a ridiculous argument.
You're not going to silence my ass by invoking the Holocaust or calling me an anti-Semite. I don't give a shit. Okay, I see what's happening clearly. I'm going to speak up about it, and no one's going to shut me up. Period. End of story. We see what's going on. The entire international community sees what's happening. The Israeli government wants to genocide and ethnically cleanse Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but the West Bank too. Look at the terror they're dealing with.
What I find amazing.
Americans are dealing with a housing crisis, drug overdose epidemic, unsafe drinking water, unimaginable economic inequality, a broken healthcare system, and more. Yet a whopping 78% of Israel's arms imports came from and were paid for by the United States. No money for Medicaid, but endless funds for genocide. So if anyone is wondering why all of these disgusting smears about Mamdani being a jihadist or an alleged anti-Semite, why they're not working, maybe it's because the candidate's economic priorities are shared by the very voters who helped him trounce Andrew Cuomo. Refusing to serve Israel before the American people should not be controversial. Refusing to prioritize New Yorkers as the mayor of New York City should be. So that's my take on Mamdani. So evidence and stories like these do not stop scumbags. And I mean that with my whole chest, okay? I'm saying it with my whole chest. Scumbags like Mark Levin and Chris Cuomo, by the way, from furthering their pathetic propaganda to provide cover for Israel's atrocities and war crimes. That is what is currently taking place. That is the reality of the situation. If it weren't the reality of the situation, journalists would be free to operate and do their jobs in Gaza to document what's happening. There's a very intentional effort to prevent the documentation of what's happening. It's not at all a coincidence in my mind that more than 200 journalists have already been killed in Gaza. And I'm sorry, Israel just announced not too long ago that they're conducting a ground invasion in Deir al-Balah. And it's interesting to me that the death toll has kind of stood still at around 60,000. I don't believe for a second that 60,000 is what the death toll actually is. I think it's much higher. You see the images on the ground. It's just absolutely brutal, and intentionally so. It's meant to be unlivable. The aerial bombardments, the destruction of infrastructure, the destruction of hospitals, universities, refugee camps, residential buildings, that's all intentional. So when Trump talks about, no one wants to live there. Gazans don't want to live there. It's unlivable. Yeah, it is unlivable. On purpose. It was made unlivable with the bombs that we American taxpayers are funding on behalf of the Israeli government so they can drop them, on the heads of these Palestinian people, destroy everything they have. It's just hilarious, right? To point to the awful situation on the ground that we aided and abetted, and then use that as the justification for the ethnic cleansing that is to come. So the hostage families, God bless them. I feel so terrible for them because their own government doesn't care about the hostages, clearly. They've been protesting, they've been demanding that the war come to an end, to no avail.
If so, the Republicans think censoring or punishing, pro-peace or pro-Palestinian protesters is somehow going to fix any issues we might have in this country with anti-Semitism, they're wrong. They have an entirely different thing coming, right? And I think the left should have learned that lesson themselves. I don't think they have.
Well, it's tough for the left because they are sort of feeding into the stereotype that wherever 2 or more sort of pro-peace Palestinian people are gathered, it's going to, behind their back is this sort of cesspool of Hamas terrorists, right?
It's so frustrating to me because the vast majority of those protesters are not hateful, do not agree with what Hamas did, are not singing the praises of Hamas. Yeah. But you'll always have that handful of cosplaying revolutionaries who care more about themselves and getting their name out there by being needlessly spicy or edgy. And so they'll say disgusting, loathsome things. And it's so easy to take those few examples and make a blanket statement about all those protesters, when in reality, there's a ton of Jewish people included in those protests, right? They're not all anti-Semitic, they're not Hamas supporters, but for those who are looking to smear the protesters in general, it's easy to do it when you have that handful of morons who say moronic things.
But in regard to the message that he's trying to put out there in regard to, corporate rule in America and money in politics in America, that is an accurate message. But you both make a great point about how money in politics has corrupted both political parties. And for the Democrats to pretend as though they're totally innocent of this is ridiculous to me, especially considering what we experienced in the last election cycle. I mean, Kamala Harris raised far more money than the Trump campaign did. And in fact, she raised far more dark money than the Trump campaign did. And then she moved forward in essentially squandering all of that money. And I think this past election really shows the kind of grift that exists within our election cycles, because that money gets spent with all these consultants and all these various, PR groups, and the amount of money they charge for their services, which have proven to be a failure in this past election cycle for the Democrats, is absolutely outrageous.
I just want to talk to you.
Well, you need to give me one promise.
Go on.
You have to give me one promise that you guys aren't going to do me dirty in the thumbnail for this video. You promise?
You know what? I can't promise because we've done some corkers recently, particularly involving Cenk. But as he knows better than anybody, a great thumbnail drives more traffic, and that's the game we're in. We want people to watch what we're doing. Otherwise, what's the point? So we are very proud of our thumbnail.
I mean, if I look
record.
attractive, that might actually draw some more eyebrows. So think about it.
Wow, you're playing that card. Well, I admire it.